The massive alien ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, like giant metal clouds filled with angry red light. Commander Thekval stood inside his command ship, looking at the small blue planet through his ship's computer that connected directly to his mind. His insect-like mouth parts clicked together with excitement. The reports from his scouts told him that the humans on this world had barely learned to travel between planets. This would be another easy victory for his empire. But far below the surface of Earth, hidden deep inside the Rocky Mountains, General Kim Ji-hoon was watching those same alien ships through special telescopes that could see across space. His face was calm and serious, even though he knew this was the most important moment in human history. Humanity had been getting ready for this day for 70 long years, ever since the first alien ship had crashed on Earth and shown them they were not alone in the universe. The secret project was called Project Shield. For 7 decades, the best scientists on Earth had been working in hidden underground laboratories, taking apart crashed alien technology piece by piece. They learned how alien computers worked, how their weapons fired energy beams, and how their ships could travel faster than light. The world's governments had kept this secret from everyone, even their own people. While normal humans went about their daily lives thinking they were alone in space, thousands of brilliant minds were preparing for war. Ji-hoon had gray hair and tired eyes from years of planning for this moment. He had been just a young soldier when the first alien wreckage was discovered. Now he was an old general, and the day he had trained for his entire life had finally come. Around him in the command center, hundreds of technicians sat at glowing computer screens watching the alien fleet get closer to Earth. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They looked alive like giant sea creatures made of metal and strange materials that pulsed with their own heartbeat. Some were long and thin like snakes, others were round like jellyfish, and the largest ones looked like enormous spiders with many arms reaching out into space. Red light flowed through tubes and channels on their surfaces, making them glow like demons in the darkness of space. Commander Thekval was confident this would be easy. His species, the Vorthak, had conquered hundreds of worlds. They were experts at taking over planets with primitive life forms. Their ships carried weapons that could destroy entire cities with one shot. Their soldiers wore armor that could stop any weapon the humans might have. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything on Earth. What Thekval did not know was that humans had been studying his technology for longer than he had been alive. In secret bases, hidden under mountains, deserts, and oceans, human engineers had built copies of Vorthak weapons. They had learned to make energy shields like the ones that protected alien ships. They had even figured out how to build faster-than-light engines, though theirs worked differently than the alien versions. Dr. Park Min-ho sat in one of these hidden bases, watching his computer screens as the alien fleet moved closer. He was one of the scientists who had spent his whole career studying alien technology. His laboratory was buried 3 miles underground, protected by layers of steel and concrete. Around him, massive machines hummed with power, ready to defend Earth with weapons the aliens would never expect humans to have. The plan was simple, but brilliant. Let the aliens think Earth was helpless. Let them come close, confident in their superiority. Then show them that humans were not the primitive creatures they expected to find. Every major city on Earth had hidden shield generators buried beneath it. Satellites in space that looked like simple communication devices were actually powerful weapons. Military bases that appeared normal on the surface had underground levels filled with technology that would amaze even the aliens. Ji-hoon reached for the communication device on his desk. With one coded message, he could activate defense systems all over the planet. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment would take their positions. Ships hidden on the dark side of the moon would power up their engines. Weapons that had never been tested in real combat would fire their first shots. But first, he wanted to give the aliens one chance to leave peacefully. Humans had learned much from studying alien culture and language. They knew that most alien empires expected other species to surrender immediately when faced with superior technology. The Vorthak had never met a species that could fight back effectively. As Ji-hoon watched the alien fleet move closer to Earth, He felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear because he knew that if humanity's secret preparations failed, his entire species would be enslaved or destroyed. Excitement because after 70 years of preparation, humans would finally have a chance to prove they belonged among the stars. The moment had arrived. Earth's greatest test was about to begin, and only time would tell if humanity's decades of secret preparation would be enough to survive their first contact with a hostile alien empire. The large Vorthak ship moved slowly through Earth's atmosphere, like a metal whale swimming through invisible water. Commander Thekval sat in his command chair, feeling very pleased with himself. His ship was broadcasting the same message his people had used to conquer over 300 worlds. The message was simple and direct, spoken in 17 different alien languages that most space-traveling species understood. Attention, primitive inhabitants of the third planet. You are now subjects of the Vorthak Empire. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and your suffering will last for generations. You have one of your time periods called hours to respond with complete submission. Thekval expected the usual response from a primitive world. Sometimes the inhabitants would send confused messages asking what was happening. Sometimes they would beg for mercy. Sometimes they would try to offer him gifts of gold or other worthless materials. Most often, they would simply panic and do nothing at all while his forces took control of their planet. But instead of any of these expected responses, something very unusual happened. His communication officer, a young Vorthak named Zilketh, suddenly sat up straight in his chair with his eyes wide open in surprise. "Commander," Zilketh said in a voice full of confusion, "we are receiving a response from the planet. But sir, they are speaking our language. Perfect Vorthak with no accent at all." Thekval's head turned quickly toward his communication officer. In all his years of conquest, no primitive species had ever learned their language. It was impossible. The Vorthak language used sounds that most alien throat structures could not make, and the grammar was so complex that even other advanced species needed years to learn it properly. "Play the message," Thekval ordered, his voice showing his surprise. The clear, calm voice of a human filled the command bridge of the alien ship. The human spoke in perfect Vorthak, using the formal military tone that was proper for speaking to a commander. "This is Earth Defense Command. You are currently trespassing in sovereign human space. Your presence here violates interstellar law. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your forces beyond the outer edge of our solar system, or we will consider your presence an act of war and respond with appropriate defensive measures." Every alien on the bridge was silent for several long moments. Never in the history of the Vorthak Empire had a primitive species dared to threaten them. Most species they encountered were still learning to make fire or build simple tools. Even, the most advanced species they had met were thousands of years behind Vorthak technology. Thekval began to laugh, a sound like metal grinding against stone. "These humans are either very brave or very stupid," he said to his officers. "They actually think they can threaten the mighty Vorthak Empire with their primitive weapons. This is amusing." He turned to his weapons officer, a large alien with 4 arms and scales covering his body. "Target their largest population center. Fire a demonstration blast at minimum power, just enough to destroy one of their cities. That should help them understand their situation better." The weapons officer began working at his control panel, charging up the ship's main plasma cannon. This weapon could destroy entire moons if set to full power, but today it would only erase one human city from existence. The aliens had done this same demonstration on hundreds of worlds, and had always convinced the local population to surrender immediately. "Target locked on the large city they call Sol," the weapons officer reported. "Plasma cannon charged, and ready to fire." "Fire!" Thekval commanded. A beam of bright red energy shot down from the alien ship toward the Earth below. The beam was hot enough to melt steel instantly and powerful enough to turn stone into glass. It moved at nearly the speed of light, so the humans below would not even see it coming before their city was destroyed. But something impossible happened. About 50 kilometers above the city of Sol, the deadly energy beam hit something invisible and stopped completely. The red plasma spread out in all directions like water hitting a window, creating a beautiful but harmless light show in the sky. The city below was completely unharmed. On his command bridge, Thekval stood up so quickly that his chair fell over backward. "What happened?" he shouted at his weapons officer. "Why did our weapon not reach the surface?" The weapons officer was looking at his instruments with total confusion on his face. "Sir, our sensors show that the humans have some kind of energy shield protecting their planet, but this is impossible. Our intelligence report said they were a primitive species that had barely learned to leave their own planet. Deep underground, in his hidden laboratory, Dr. Park Min-ho was watching the readings from the shield generators with great satisfaction. The energy barrier that had stopped the alien attack was based on technology that humans had learned from studying crashed alien ships over the past 70 years. But the human version was actually better than the original alien design, because human engineers had found ways to make it more efficient. "Shield generators are working perfectly," Min-ho reported to General Ji-hoon through his secure communication system. The alien weapon was completely neutralized. They look very surprised up there. Ji-hoon smiled for the first time in months. "Good. Now they know that Earth is not as helpless as they thought." Commander Thekval was now very angry. His face had turned a dark purple color, which happened when Vorthak aliens became extremely upset. No primitive species had ever been able to stop their weapons before. He slammed his fist down on his command chair so hard that it made a loud cracking sound. "Send all fighter ships to attack their cities," he ordered his officers. "If their shields can stop our big weapons, we will use many small weapons instead. Launch every attack craft we have. Show these humans what happens when they dare to resist the Vorthak Empire." The alien fleet began opening huge doors on the sides of their ships. Thousands of small fighter craft poured out like angry insects from a disturbed nest. Each fighter was about the size of a human jet plane, but they moved much faster and could fly in ways that seemed impossible. They could turn in sharp angles, stop suddenly in mid-air, and accelerate to incredible speeds in just seconds. Alien pilots inside these fighters were confident and excited. They had attacked hundreds of worlds before, and it was always easy. Most primitive species had no flying machines at all, and those that did have aircraft were slow and clumsy compared to Vorthak technology. The pilots expected to destroy human cities within minutes and return to their ships as heroes. But as the alien fighters rushed toward Earth, something unexpected happened in the empty space near the moon. What looked like solid rock on the moon's dark side suddenly began to open up like giant doors. Hidden inside the moon were human military bases that had been built in secret over many years. The humans had hollowed out huge caves and filled them with spacecraft that no alien had ever seen before. Captain Lee Suman sat in the pilot seat of her fighter ship, waiting for the signal to launch. She had been training for this moment for 15 years, ever since she was selected as a child to become part of Earth's secret space force. Her ship looked different from anything humans had built before. It was sleek and curved like a shark, painted black so it would be invisible against the darkness of space. "All pilots, this is command," came the voice through her radio. "The aliens have launched their attack fighters. You are cleared to engage. Remember your training. Make every shot count. Good luck." Suman pressed the launch button and felt her ship shoot forward like a bullet from a gun. Around her, hundreds of other human fighters were launching from hidden bases on the moon, on asteroids, and even from inside fake satellites that had been orbiting Earth for decades. The human pilots had been chosen for their quick reflexes and their ability to think creatively during combat. Lieutenant Yang Jiwoo was flying her fighter through a group of asteroids, using them to hide from alien sensors. Her ship had special technology that made it very hard to see. When she turned on the camouflage system, her fighter would bend light around itself, becoming almost invisible like a ghost in space. She watched through her cockpit window as a group of 12 alien fighters flew past her hiding spot. The aliens were flying in a perfect straight line, just like their training had taught them. They were following the exact same attack pattern that the Vorthak had used successfully on hundreds of other worlds. But humans did not fight like other species. Humans had learned about war from thousands of years of fighting each other on Earth. They knew that the side that could surprise their enemy would usually win. They knew that sometimes the best strategy was to do something that seemed impossible or crazy. Jiwoo waited until the alien fighters were far past her position, then quietly moved her ship behind them. The aliens never looked backward because their sensors told them there were no human ships in that area. Their computers were very advanced, but they could not detect Jiwoo's camouflaged fighter. She lined up her weapons and fired a special type of missile that human scientists had developed. It was called a quantum torpedo, and it worked in a way that was completely different from normal weapons. Instead of traveling through space like a regular missile, the quantum torpedo could exist in several different places at the same time. Until the moment it hit its target, the alien pilots never even knew what hit them. One moment they were flying confidently toward Earth, and the next moment their ships were exploding in bright flashes of light. The quantum torpedoes had appeared inside their ships without passing through the armor or shields, something that should have been impossible according to normal physics. All across the space around Earth, similar scenes were happening. Human pilots who had trained their entire lives for this battle were using tactics and weapons that the aliens had never encountered before. The Vorthak fighters, which had seemed so advanced and dangerous just minutes before, were being destroyed, faster than their commanders could understand what was happening. Captain Suman rolled her fighter in a spiral pattern that would have been impossible for most alien pilots to follow. Human bodies could handle higher forces and more extreme movements than most alien species. She chased 3 enemy fighters through a maze of space debris, firing precisely aimed shots that disabled their engines without killing the pilots. In just 30 minutes, more than half of the alien attack force had been destroyed or captured. The rest were trying to retreat back to their main ships, but human fighters were chasing them every step of the way. Commander Thekkeval watched in horror as his supposedly superior forces were defeated by creatures he had thought were primitive savages. Commander Thekkeval was becoming desperate. His space fighters had been destroyed by the humans, and his powerful weapons could not break through their energy shields, but he still had one advantage that had never failed him before. His ground soldiers were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They wore armor that could stop any weapon, and they carried guns that could melt through solid steel. Send all ground forces to the surface, Thekkeval ordered his remaining officers. Land them in the biggest human cities. These primitive creatures may have learned to fight in space, but they will panic when they see real Vorthak soldiers marching through their streets. Large transport ships began falling from the alien fleet toward Earth like metal meteors. Each ship carried 500 Vorthak soldiers wearing heavy battle armor that made them look like giant metal insects. The aliens had used these ground forces to conquer every world they had ever attacked. Most primitive species would run away, in terror when they saw the fearsome Vorthak warriors. The first transport ships landed in the middle of Tokyo, one of Earth's largest cities. The huge ships crushed cars and buildings as they touched down, creating clouds of dust and smoke. The back doors of the ships opened with loud hissing sounds, and the Vorthak soldiers marched out in perfect formation. But something was wrong. Instead of screaming humans running away in panic, the aliens found empty streets. The humans had disappeared as if the entire city had been abandoned in just a few minutes. The only sounds were the wind blowing through the silent buildings and the heavy footsteps of the alien soldiers. "Where are all the inhabitants?" asked Captain Vextar, the leader of the first landing force. He spoke into his communication device. To his soldiers spread throughout the city. "Search every building, find the humans, they must be hiding somewhere." What the aliens did not know was that every major city on Earth had been prepared for this exact situation. As soon as the transport ships had been detected, emergency sirens had sounded throughout Tokyo. In less than 10 minutes, millions of people had disappeared into hidden tunnels and underground shelters that had been built in secret over many years. Retired Sergeant Choi Daeho was leading a group of 40 civilians through subway tunnels that had been modified with advanced technology. The tunnels looked normal, but the walls were lined with sensors that could detect alien movements anywhere in the city above. Every person in his group carried weapons that looked simple, but were actually more advanced than anything the aliens had. "Remember what we practiced," Daeho whispered to his group as they moved silently through the tunnels. "The aliens think they are hunting helpless civilians, but we have been preparing for this day our entire lives. We know these tunnels better than they know their own ships. This is our home, and we will defend it." Above ground, the Vorthak soldiers were becoming confused and frustrated. They had searched dozens of buildings but found no humans anywhere. Their sensors showed that millions of people lived in this city, but now it seemed completely empty. Some of the younger soldiers were starting to feel nervous, though they would never admit it to their officers. Private Zekmoth was checking the inside of a large office building when he heard a strange sound behind him. He turned around quickly, raising his plasma rifle, but saw nothing except empty hallways and abandoned desks. He was sure he had heard footsteps, but his sensors showed no life forms anywhere nearby. What Zekmoth did not know was that human engineer Kim Ariam was watching him from a hidden camera just 3 meters away. She was sitting in an underground command center that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Dozens of computer screens showed every street and building in the city. She could see exactly where every alien soldier was located. "Target confirmed in Building 7. Ariam whispered into her microphone. "Civilian Team 4, you are clear to proceed." In the tunnels below, Deho received the message through his earpiece. He made silent hand signals to his team, and they began moving through passages that led directly under the office building where the alien soldier was searching. The humans had spent decades learning everything they could about alien technology. They knew that Vorthak armor was very strong, but it had weak points at the joints between the metal plates. They knew that alien sensors could detect most forms of life, but they could be fooled by special materials that humans had developed. Deho's team emerged from a hidden door in the basement of the office building. They moved like ghosts through the building using stairs and elevators that made no sound. Each person wore clothes made from fabric that made them invisible to alien sensors. They carried weapons that fired special bullets designed to penetrate. Vorthak armor at its weakest points. Private Zekmoth was still searching the 10th floor when he heard footsteps again. This time he was sure someone was there. He turned around with his weapon ready, but instead of seeing helpless humans, he found himself facing 40 well-armed and well-trained fighters who had appeared as if from nowhere. "Surrender now, and you will not be harmed," Deho said in perfect Vorthak language. The alien soldier was so surprised that a human could speak his language that he hesitated for just a moment. That moment was all the humans needed. All across Tokyo, and in every other city where aliens had landed, similar scenes were playing out. The Vorthak soldiers found themselves fighting not against terrified civilians, but against organized resistance fighters who knew the terrain perfectly and had weapons designed specifically to defeat alien technology. Commander Thekval stood in his command center watching his invasion fall apart on every screen around him. His space fighters had been destroyed by human pilots who fought like nothing he had ever seen before. His ground soldiers were being defeated by civilians who seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. His powerful weapons could not break through the energy shields protecting human cities. For the first time in his long military career, Thekval felt something he had never experienced before during a conquest. He felt afraid. His species had conquered 300 worlds using the same tactics, the same weapons, and the same strategies. But Earth was different. These humans were not like any other species the Vorthak Empire had ever encountered. "Sir," his communication officer called out with panic in his voice, "we are receiving reports from all landing zones. Our ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation. They say the humans are using weapons and tactics that our training never prepared us for." "That is impossible," Thekval replied, but his voice did not sound as confident as it had a few hours ago. "Our soldiers are the finest warriors in the galaxy. How can primitive humans be defeating them?" What Thekval did not understand was that humanity had achieved something that very few species in the galaxy had ever managed. They had put aside all their differences and worked together as one unified people. For 70 years, every country on Earth had shared their best scientists, their most advanced technology, and their greatest military minds to prepare for this day. In the hidden command center deep under the Rocky Mountains, General Kim Ji-hoon was coordinating the defense of his entire planet. Around him sat representatives from every nation on Earth. There were no arguments about politics or religion or territory. There was only one goal that mattered to everyone in the room: protecting their homeworld from alien invaders. Report from all sectors, Ji-hoon called out to his staff. Asian Defense Grid reports 80% of alien ground forces have been neutralized, came the first reply. European sector confirms that all alien transport ships in their area have been captured or destroyed, said another officer. American Defense Forces report successful capture of 3 alien commanders for interrogation, added a third voice. But the most important battle was still being fought in a place that the aliens could not see or understand. Programmer Kim Areum sat in a special room filled with the most advanced computers on Earth. These machines had been built using technology learned from crashed alien ships, but human engineers had made them work in ways that the original alien designers had never imagined. I am inside their computer system, Areum reported to General Ji-hoon through her secure communication link. The alien ships use biological computers that think like living creatures, but they never expected anyone to understand how they work. Areum had been studying alien computer systems for her entire adult life. She knew that Vorthak technology was based on machines that were part computer and part living organism. These biocomputers were very powerful, but they had one major weakness. They could be infected with special programs that worked like viruses, spreading from one system to another. Beginning upload of the surrender protocol, Areum announced as her fingers moved quickly across her keyboard. This should be very interesting. On his command ship, Thekval was trying to decide whether to retreat or call for reinforcements when something very strange began happening to his ship's computer systems. All the screens around him started flashing with messages written in human languages instead of Vorthak symbols. What is happening to our systems? Thekval shouted at his technical officers. Sir, the humans have somehow infected our biocomputers with some kind of virus, the chief technician replied with terror in his voice. The infection is spreading to every system on the ship. We are losing control of weapons, navigation, and communications. What Areum had done was something that the Vorthak had thought was impossible. She had created a computer virus that could take control of biological systems and make them obey human commands instead of alien orders. The virus was spreading through the entire alien fleet faster than the Vorthak officers could stop it. Warning, surrender protocol activated, announced the ship's computer in perfect human English. All Vorthak forces will cease hostilities immediately and prepare for peaceful surrender negotiations. Thekval watched in horror as his own ship began broadcasting surrender messages to every other vessel in his fleet. The biocomputers that controlled weapons, shields, and engines were no longer following Vorthak commands. Instead, they were obeying instructions that had been programmed by a human sitting in a hidden bunker thousands of kilometers away. 1. By one, every ship in the alien fleet began sending the same message. We surrender. We request mercy and peaceful negotiations. General Ji-hoon stood up in his command center and activated the communication system that would broadcast his voice to every alien ship and to every human on Earth. When he spoke, his words would be heard by billions of people and thousands of alien soldiers. To the Vorthak Empire and all who might be listening across the galaxy, Ji-hoon began, his voice calm and strong. This is Earth Defense Command. Your invasion of our world has failed. Your forces are defeated. But we do not seek revenge or conquest. We offer peaceful coexistence to all species willing to respect our sovereignty and our right to exist as free people. He paused for a moment, then continued with words that would be remembered for centuries. To any other species that might consider Earth an easy target, let this day serve as a warning. We were ready for you. We will always be ready.